Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over this scope right here. It's the EOTech Vudu 5-25 compact scope. And when this thing was first introduced, I saw it at a trade show. I think it was NRA in 2018. And I was just thinking, like, there's got to be a compromise going on here that I'm not seeing. So, I watched the reviews and saw what people were writing about it, and really, most folks weren't finding it. So I did go ahead and pick one up for myself for the review, and that's what you guys are going to be seeing here today. I wanted to do it outside despite the wind because it's in the 60s and it's in January, so I didn't want to miss out on that. But either way, guys, the big thing on this scope is that it's a high quality scope. It's got high definition glass, all of those sorts of things, 34 millimeter tube. So it's got lots of travel, both for windage and elevation, for those of you guys that are into that. But it's only 11.2 inches long. Now, to get a scope with those features that I just mentioned into this package, again, I just assumed there was going to be big time compromises in eye box, eye relief, those sorts of things. I didn't see it. So just to, again, put it in perspective, this is a primary arms. This is their Platinum 6-30, so a little bit more magnification there. But you guys can take a look there at the size difference. It's significant. And it's not that this is a scope that's large for its class. It's not. This is an average size scope when you're talking about high-end Japanese produced scopes with 34 millimeter mounts. I should point that out. This was made in Japan. This was made in Japan. I believe both are made by Light Optical Works over there. I cannot verify that, but I would imagine so just from looking at it. And again, just to give you another comparison here, this is the Brownell's MPO, which is a 5-25 rather, so it's exact same magnification scope, and you guys can see the size difference. Again, this is not abnormal in the category. This is normal. This is abnormal, right? So that is the key feature there to point out. So let's get into the details of it and then continue on. We'll start at the rear for some semblance of order. We do have a focus piece on the rear. So what this does is it allows you to set the reticle so that you can see it clearly with your eye, and it's focused with your vision. Everyone's vision is a little bit different. So it allows you to set the scope to you, which is certainly a good thing, having that ability to do so. I recommend using a blue sky as a background to do that, but there's, I'm sure, a ton of videos on YouTube that will get into that in detail. Back here, if you're not going to use this lever, which we'll talk about here in just a second, it has good knurling on there, so you can grab it and turn it relatively easy. That said, it's not so easy that it's accidentally going to bump. You have to grab it, and it is smooth. So that's for sure. The actual throw distance appears to be just under 180 degrees, so you don't have to go, over half of a rotation to go all the way from 5 to 25. Now, it does come with this lever here in the box. I don't know why anyone wouldn't use it. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't. It just makes it quicker, in my opinion. And I put a little bit of blue Loctite in there. It hasn't moved at all through all of the firing that we've done with it, and it just makes it easier to use. So the scope, I should also mention, is a first focal plane scope. So with that, anywhere along here in our magnification range, it is usable in terms of judging distances, holdovers, those sorts of things. There's a couple different reticles that we'll talk about here in just a second as well, but really smooth. There's absolutely nothing to complain about there at all. Continuing forward to the turrets, one thing that's nice about these is that outside of setting your zero stop, which it does have the capability to do, everything is going to be toolless on them. So for instance, basically just to dial it in, you're just going to pull up and that unlocks it. At this point, each click is going to be 0.1 mrad or milliradian, which is approximately 0.36 inches at 100 yards, for those who don't know. And the clicks are tactile, positive, you don't miss them. They have a little bit of audible click in there as well. And then whenever you get it to the point that you want it at, just push down, and at this point it will not move in any way. And if you want to set your zero stop, it's simple. Again, 2 Allen keys will do it. If you just want to dial it to 0, all you need to do is remove this top piece here. As you can see, everything is O-ring sealed and waterproof and all that jazz. And then you're going to take your 0 marking and line it up. But one thing I should point out that I do like about this scope is the machining is excellent on these little detents in there. And what that does is it allows you to, when you actually put it back to 0, you're actually at 0. You're not somewhere in between 0 and 0.1. It actually gives you the ability to go right back to 0, and you can't do it wrong. In terms of machining, that's excellent. I've seen some high-end scopes that get that wrong, and Vortex here does not, which is nice. Our windage turret is capped. If you guys have watched the channel here for a long time, I've said I don't even know how many times, probably hundreds of times in videos, that I do not dial windage ever, period. I always hold windage simply because it's, generally speaking, changing very quickly. So we have our capped windage knob here. However, it still retains its waterproof capabilities and qualities without that cap on there. So if you want to run it and be able to dial your windage, you can. There's no issues there. Same thing here on the windage. It's very tactile, very audible. It's actually, compared to the two, this one actually feels a little bit more tactile now that I'm actually feeling both of them. Yeah, it is. It's a little bit stiffer here on the windage than it is in the elevation. I don't know if that's good or bad. Either way, when you get it set to where you want, just put your cap back on there and you're good to go. On the left side of our scope, we have our parallax adjustment as well as our illumination controls. So basically, you can get your parallax all the way down to 45 yards and then extend it to 1,000, and of course, then to infinity. Again, just like other features on the scope, it's got great knurling on there. It's very easy and tactile to maneuver through the different ranges that you want to set your parallax at. For those who don't know or are new here, parallax, for setting your parallax rather, you want to be, generally speaking, pretty close to the distance that your target is at. Your target will be in focus at the distance that it says here. And if you move your head around, you shouldn't see any movement on the reticle versus how it appears on the target, assuming the target's stationary. So that's what you're actually doing there, is making sure that regardless of your head position, you're getting point of aim, point of impact for your zero. So over here on the left side, we do have our brightness controls. And I guess if there was a con about this that some folks are going to find, particularly with this reticle, this would be it. So I've seen reports online where folks say it's daylight bright. I would say it's not, at least not with this particular reticle. If you have the Horus, from what I've seen, again, images online, that one may very well be. However, this one was definitely designed with low light shooting in mind. So you hit your power button here and then it'll come on for 2 hours if you don't hit any of the plus or minus buttons. So it has 10 different settings. The plus is over here and minus is on the front. It's powered by a CR2032 battery. If you don't hit anything with 2 hours, it will auto shut off, so you don't have to worry about draining your battery if you forget to turn it off. But with this one, again, from everything I've seen using it, it's not daylight bright with this reticle, so I suppose let's get into the reticle. So as of when I'm filming this, there's two different reticles. Again, we mentioned that earlier with the Horus, and then this, I believe, is the MD3 reticle, which is a basic mill type reticle. I've heard rumors that others may be introduced in the product line. That said, I haven't seen them yet. So let's kind of walk you through it here. Looking at it, first off, let's talk about the eye box, because I didn't cover that yet. Again, with a shorter scope like this, a little bit more compact, one thing that you would think you would see is a shorter eye box. It's not. Basically, throughout the different magnification range, according to the specs, it goes from 3.7 inches in terms of eye relief to 3.9 inches. I mean, that's pretty common on any of these 5 to whatever scopes that have the 34 millimeter rings that are Japanese made anyway. So in terms of that, there's absolutely no issues there at all in terms of eye relief. You guys have seen how I've had it set up throughout the review. Let's walk through the reticle here real quick. So again, it's a basic mill type reticle. In the center, one thing that I really like, which is nice, is the dot there is very, very fine. It is, it's under half MOA when you're actually looking through it, and then it has space all the way around. It has half a mil, rather, all the way around. So that way, when you're actually looking at a target, you can get a clear view of the target, what's around it, those sorts of things, which I certainly do like. I believe I said half mil. I believe it's actually 0.2 mils all the way around it now that I just looked through it. And basically, we have the ability to hold under, if we need to, up to 1 mil. Kind of a criticism on my part there. I don't know why they wouldn't put some hash marks in there. It's not going to hurt anything to do so on the top there, just above the dot. That said, I realize most people aren't, holding under for long distances, but just a thought. And if you look basically at your vertical and horizontal stadia lines, you have 0.2 mil increments all the way down, and then the actual small hashes themselves are 0.5 mil, and the large hashes, which are marked, which I definitely like, are 1 mil across. So the reason I say it's nice that they're actually marked is that there's a ton of reticles out there, guys, that have these milling or MOA increments that there's no number next to them, and you have to, when you're in the heat of the moment and time is of the essence, you have to actually count them to get to where you're at, whereas with this you don't have to, which certainly is nice. Everything's crisp. The etching is really clean. There's no issues at all. in terms of that. And then if you look there on your horizontal stadia lines as well, everything's the same. However, the actual half mil that you get in terms of ranging just goes down at the 0.2 mil marks, and then it goes up, of course, at the full marks. So if you want to range that way, those are your, your numbers for actually calculating your firing solution. And once again, guys, with the first focal point, all those numbers are true regardless of the magnification setting you're at, which certainly is nice. I do like that on higher power scopes, simply because if you don't actually turn it all the way to 25 and you're actually at 23, if you're at distance, that absolutely can make a difference and impact where your shot hits. One thing I should have noted there on the reticle is that when it is illuminated, the small dots there all the way down your vertical stadia line, those are the only things that are illuminated. Again, I like that. For low light application, you don't want your whole reticle illuminated. One man's opinion. If you have an etched reticle, if you have a wire reticle, it's different. But if you have an etched reticle, it just tends to lead to blooming and your eye not being able to pick up as much light as it could otherwise, because if you have something bright in front of your eye, just think about, walking into a room and it's bright and someone shuts the lights off, your ability to pick up objects in low light is diminished until your eyes adjust. Well, the same thing's true if you're looking at this really bright, huge reticle blown up in your face versus these small little dots here that in low light, my opinion, are advantageous as opposed to the daylight bright reticles that a lot of people are looking for sometimes. I've never been a fan of them, not with etched reticles. I've never used them, put it that way. So I prefer this type of setup. I know some of you guys out there just want daylight bright, and that's cool. So if that's you, do not look at the scope with this reticle. Is what it is. A con of this that I didn't mention, I don't think already, is that between our lenses here, there's just not a lot of room. Now, because of that, a lot of your one-piece 34mm mounts simply aren't going to work on this particular scope. There are some that do, though. So if you check around online, you'll definitely see images of different brands and stuff like that do work on here. So don't think you can't use anything. Just know that you can't use everything. So you have to use rings in some cases. With what I had available on this particular rifle, that's the only thing I had that would work. These are Seekins rings for folks out there wondering. Another thing to talk about, of course, that folks always want to know about is the glass. And I can tell you, I don't see any chromatic aberration at any magnification range. Now, I'm sure there's scopes out there that are better in terms of that, but looking around the edges, I don't see anything. So that would cause me to say that there's an issue there at all. There's maybe, I don't know. So on lower end scopes, typically you'll see a bluish purple tint on the edges if you're actually looking at it. I don't see any of that here, and I'm on max magnification, guys, so that's pretty good, especially for a scope at this price point with these features that we talked about here. And speaking of price point, looking around on the internet, you can find these. I think the MSRP is $2,100, and if you obviously shop around for deals, you can find it for less, for sure. So it's not inexpensive at all. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it is, but compared to other offerings in this type of package, I think Calais makes one that's a similar size and features type of optic, and that's way, way more than this. So for what you get, I think you get a lot of scope for the money. I really do. This is one I would recommend for sure. Of course, we'll have links and discount codes and stuff like that down below in the video description or pinned in the comments, depending on where you're watching this. But I've been a fan of it. You guys are going to continue to see this one on the channel. This one's going to stick around where you're not getting rid of this one. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, you can post them down below in the comment section. You can also post those questions over at my Facebook page. As always, that's the best place to reach me if you actually need an answer, because I actually see all the messages over there. It takes me sometimes a few days to get back to folks because there's literally hundreds of thousands of you and only one of me, but I do get back to folks over there. If you guys aren't subscribed and you like this type of video, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I truly appreciate it, and you guys are the reason I get to do these fun videos that you guys are watching right now. Thanks for watching, regardless of your subscription status. I truly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video.